Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw number 212, another 7 curious, interesting things I saw last week. So as ever, let's crack on. First one is a really cool game. This is by Meaning Machine and it's called Dead Meat. And it's really interesting in that it uses AI conversation as your interface. So you're interrogating the game and it's a murder mystery. You have to figure out, you have to interrogate them using your voice. They speak back and obviously what you say then changes the plot of the game as well. So you have to uncover all of the bits and bobs. There's another game that I've got which is called Unknown Number, which is sort of the same premise, but you know, you receive an unknown number call and then you have to try and figure out what's going on. So it's a really interesting interface, shall we say, to gaming. So nice, good use of AI, I expect. Particle armoured liquid robots. Need to explain this one. So what you're seeing in that little video there is a blob of water with a coating of essentially dust on it, but it's hydrophobic dust. So what that means is the water droplet doesn't actually basically come out of its droplet. So you can then manipulate that, you can move it along, and this is sped up by the way, this is 10 times faster than it should be, but you can then move those droplets using electromagnetic waves and fields. So here are two, so they're setting up this whole kind of, scenario here. You've got these two blobs with two different chemicals in them, and you can then slam those together and they can form one bigger blob, but it's also reactive, and you can move that bigger blob into this little chute and it goes into a bottle. So they're trying to simulate this kind of, this droplet has to go through these bars, which is weird, and then it has to make this chemical. The interesting bit about this, apparently these already existed, so whoever's making these, I mean this bit's super awesome, but basically what's happened is they've actually created a really good coating around it, really armoured coating as they're calling it, which means it can split through bars, it can go through liquids and all that sort of stuff. So you can deliver potentially chemicals or you can sort of manipulate drugs, whatever it might need to be using this technique. What you do with it, I have no idea, but there you go, really interesting, now you know. Are we approaching artificial general intelligence? Well, if you'd have had these tests, which are, you give an AI a test and it's, oh, we're getting close, we're getting close. Actually, there's a new test. It's the update of the old test, and it's much, much more realistic and much more difficult for AIs as well. So this is the ARC-AGI 2, and ARC is Abstract and Reasoning Corpus. And what it basically means is if you give humans a task to do, they find it quite easy. You give it to an AI, they find it quite difficult. Now, if the AI can't do human stuff, it's not approaching human intelligence. So that's the test. So what they've done is they've got 1,000 tests, they've got 400 people, and they've given the tests to those people. And as long as 2 people can do the test in at least 2 goes, then it's equivalent of, it goes in the test basically into the corpus. You give that to an AI and it usually struggles because they're just, these ones along the bottom, which I've copied in, I looked at them for a little, maybe sort of 30 seconds and went, oh yeah, I get it. So if I can get it, they're not that difficult. Let's put it that way. However, so if you look at the graph at the top, just explain that, the dots are the ARC-AGI 1 test, and you can see, well, actually there's quite a lot, humans are right at the top, and therefore, they're getting quite close. You got the OpenAI's O3, for instance, model, it's getting quite close. Now, if you look at the triangles at the bottom, that's the new test, and you find out nearly all of the models are way down at the bottom. We are miles away from AGI. So if you were having sleepless nights thinking we're going to be taken over, we're quite a way away. We just got to hide everything in these funny, colourful tasks. There you go. Interesting. This is really interesting as well. So this is Eric Stoddart from Car Design Academy, and I like drawing cars. I doodle cars all the time, so this is doubly up my street. However, if you've ever tried drawing in AR or XR, then it's a bit tricky. So it's really interesting how far it's come on. So this is using the Logitech MX ink pen, but you don't necessarily need that. But this is using a thing called Gravity Sketch, and by Gravity Sketch you can just make these really cool skins on models, and you can sort of sketch it. You can do that anyway, but this kind of skinning things in 3D and manipulating them, really, really interesting to watch this video. So definitely implore you to go and have a look at his channel. It's really interesting. If you want to get into car design, equally brilliant channel, so go and have a look at that. We need to talk about vibe design, or vibe coding is really the phrase of the time, but now you can do vibe designing. So what that basically means, you don't necessarily have to know anything about the software that you're trying to do. You just need to be able to kind of manipulate AIs and tell it what to do. So vibe coding, for instance, you don't need to know about how to code, you just need to know how to control an AI to spit out the code. And now that's transforming and it's coming over to design. So this is me playing with Flora. which is online, so you don't have to download anything. If you've used something like Comfy UI, it's a bit tricky and it's a bit gnarly and it's a bit nerdy. You have to download it and you have to install stuff. This is all online. You can have the same experience. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking my logo at the beginning and I'm just basically asking questions of it. So, I'm saying, well, animate it, make it look like it's in the 80s. What would the character be? If the character had an enemy, what would the enemy be? And then I'm asking it like I'm just showing you here. Well, it's great. That's interesting, but what would their names be? And it gives me the names. And I then tell it to render some, artwork based on that as well. So it's about creatives exploring creativity using AI. So it's really interesting. Sign up for free. There's a free tier and you can have a play. There you go. Interesting. Monolithic autonomous walking robots. Now, what that basically means is there's not really much to these. If you see this little diagram here on the right hand side, it actually uses kind of valves to send air one way or another. And as it goes to one way, it then flips it and it goes the other way as well. So if, for instance, you take this 3D print and it's all printed in one go, and all you've got to do is take it off the 3D printer and stick an air canister on it, a little compressed gas canister on it, and watch what it does. So you just put an air canister on it, no electronics, no nothing, and no brain to it essentially, and it then inflates and it just starts walking. So that's really cool. And inside there, what's going on is those valves are opening and closing, and as they open and close, they make the legs move, and it just keeps going. It's waterproof. It will just keep going as long as there's air in it, which I think is amazing. So well done, University College of San Diego. Super creepy. There you go. It is definitely waterproof, and it works. So I saw this because the title said, it's basically a robot that can walk directly off the 3D printer. Needs an air canister, but it's not far off. So I like that. Why would you use this? Well, if you need something that can get somewhere and electronics are maybe not an option for environmental reasons or electromagnetic reasons, whatever, this is maybe an option. And finally, a really interesting study. This is actually from the UK's Royal College of Surgeons. And, you think, technology, what is it good for? It's led the world to ruin, all that sort of stuff. Now, in the UK in 2012, that was kind of the main point where we had a sort of an uptake on digital payments. So cash started to dwindle, as you can see from the graph at the top, and debit cards started to go up. It was kind of 2012. Now, also COVID gave an uptick to that as well, but 2012 was this really important year. And that year is where that middle point is on the bottom graph. And what the other dotty line is, those are the procedures done to remove foreign objects from children's throats, i.e. coins and stuff. Now, obviously there's other things, there's, health and safety of food and, pen lids and things like that. But there was basically, there's an interesting correlation between 2012 when the debit card started to be used, cash started to go down, and less things, basically less coins were found in children's throats. Now, this is just coins, but it's just really interesting. There might be some very strong correlation between children not swallowing coins and cashless payments. So technology is not always bad. It's stopping children potentially choking. There you go. An anecdote maybe for a dinner party you're at when somebody talks about this. There you go. Interesting. Hopefully that was interesting. Hopefully it was useful. If you're not subscribed, give us a subscribe. Check them out every Monday morning, and I'll see you next week.